tonight's speaker is our President's Charity Choice, the Sound Rivers Lower Neuse Riverkeeper. And she's here tonight to tell, can you hear me? To tell us about how she does everything to help guard the health of the Neuse and the Tar Pamlico River basins. And she does that with concerned citizens that unite to monitor, to protect, to preserve the watersheds, which cover nearly 1/4 of North Carolina. That's a new fact for me. And how does she do this? With her concerned citizens through water protection. She's going to tell us about community engagement tonight, how we can reduce pollution, and fight for environmental justice. And her name is Katy Hunt, and she does have a guest with her. She's got a baby. And she told me, whispered to me, it's the only male here tonight. And she's going to tell us how she became involved in keeping the beautiful Neuse River healthy. And I hope she tells her story of how she heard about Neuse and how she drove through here wondering if it was a place she would ever want to live. And she joined Sound Rivers in 2017, and she is their primary representative for the Neuse River Basin from the Lenore-Wayne County line eastward to the mouth of the Neuse River. I'm sure you have a map to show that. And prior to joining Sound Rivers, Katy worked as an environmental science technician, and I'm going to slaughter the name, Klein Smith?
Very close, Klein Schmidt.
Okay, Klein Schmidt. Associates in Lexington, South Carolina. And then as a graduate, she was quite an impressive student with a BS degree in Earth and Environmental Science from the University of New Orleans. And she served as a student ambassador for the U.S. Department of the Interior at that university. She was also a natural resource management intern at the Jane Lafitte National Historical Park and Preserve, and you'll have to tell us where that is. And she led citizen science projects that helped educate diverse groups on science and nature. And she and her husband live 2 blocks from the Neuse River in our historical New Bern Riverside neighborhood. And she does have a passion for water and the environment, a dog lover, avid kayaker, and a U.S. Department of Interior certified motorboat operator. So please welcome Katy Hunt.
Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me all right? Yes. Okay, good. I'm pretty good about talking loudly. Hey, microphones, make it sound weird. Thank you all so much for having me here tonight. Not just for the delicious dinner, but it's been great being able to talk to several of you and get to know more about your group. And I love any opportunity I can to talk to our community members about the work that we do, our rivers, and hearing from y'all what you care about when it comes to our rivers and what's important to you. As a riverkeeper, I wear many hats. Any given day, I am a scientist, an educator, an advocate. Some days I'm all of those things and other things too. It's a toss-up every given day. And actually, recently, I no longer am the Lower Neuse Riverkeeper from Lenore down. I am the Neuse Riverkeeper. I doubled my basin size and my workload, so let's see. Wake up, computer. There we go. So a little bit about Sound Rivers. We say that we are a prime nonprofit. That means we advocate, protect, restore, investigate, monitor. Like I said, many hats any given day. Yes. So Sound Rivers was actually founded in 2015 when the Neuse River Foundation and the Pamlico Tar River Foundation merged. So same great work protecting both of those river basins, we just rebranded and also doubled our coverage range, which is, as she said, nearly 1/4 of the state's landmass is covered by all of the tributaries for these 2 river basins. And you can see just how big of a splash that is. We have 2 riverkeepers, myself for all of the yellow, and Pamlico Tar Riverkeeper for all of the orange, and she's based in Washington. And not only is it nearly a quarter of the state, but we are here being a resource and representative for over 2 million residents. It's probably more than that at this point now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the threats to our rivers, specifically here, both the Neuse and the Trent River. So I'm going to get a little doom and gloom for a little bit, sorry guys, but don't worry, there's silver lining. I've got cheery stuff at the end to pick it up. So a big question is always kind of what are the issues of the river? What are the threats to the river's health? And we've got quite a few of them. Nutrient pollution being the biggest one, and it's the one that, if you've never heard of it, it sounds very strange because nutrients are a good thing. But just like chocolate, which is also a very good thing, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And nutrient pollution is a problem through both stormwater runoff and agricultural runoff. Those are our biggest influences or contributors of nutrient pollution. Of course, we've also got an issue with bacteria from things like sewer spills. Also super glamorous stuff. And we already know that hurricanes, we're very well versed in that threat and the issues that hurricanes pose. And of course, the mundane litter. I say mundane because we've all heard it, give a hoot, don't pollute, pick up your trash, etc., etc. But it's a growing problem, and microplastics is the new sexy term that we've put along with litter. But it is a growing problem because we don't know how bad of a problem it is yet, and that's something that we are working on. So for the pictures, this is a hog farm. And in these barns are all little piggies, and this big pink triangle here is all of the little piggies' poop. Because swine waste is Pepto-Bismol pink. Who knew? And here is a construction site where all of this sediment is running off from the construction site, and you can see that these black sheets, these are put up there to prevent sediment runoff. They're clearly not preventing sediment runoff. And I know that dirt seems like a strange pollutant, but sedimentation is a big issue when it comes to pollution. So, a little bit more on nutrient pollution. Like I said, stormwater and agricultural runoff are our two biggest sources for nutrient pollution. Stormwater runoff is any and all precipitation that hits a pervious surface, roofs, streets, sidewalks, parking lots, and washes off of those pervious surfaces, or impervious surfaces, into the gutters, the storm drains, directly out to the river. Because unlike our sewer systems, which go to a treatment facility, anything that you see go down the drain goes straight to our river. There's actually several of these storm drains around downtown that actually have a little emblem next to it that says drains directly to river. The Craven Early College, their student, I think it's their Civitan Club, every year they bring out a stencil and spray paint the streets next to the drains with little fish to remind you that it drains straight to the river. Agricultural runoff essentially is animal waste from the big triangle pink lagoon that I showed you is applied to fields for, crops as fertilizer. Unfortunately, it is over-applied and also runs off and just pollutes the nearby streams and creeks, which then flow into the larger rivers. And that comes from CAFOs, Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation. It's that picture that I showed you on the previous slide. Unfortunately, it's an outdated and ineffective system. We always say we are not anti-farmer, we are not anti-agriculture, we are anti-pollution. And unfortunately, the way the agricultural system is set up is it's designed to be a polluting system. So we want to see changes to it, not for it to go away. And one of the big things that we're also very familiar with here, the nutrient pollution leads to fish kills. If you've been here for more than a year or two, you've seen a fish kill on our river, unfortunately. So how does too many nutrients equal dead fish? Well, the quick step-to-step is nutrients fertilize the algae, algae blooms, algae dies, algae decomposes, decomposition eats up the oxygen in the water, and also in the summer months when we've got warmer water temperatures, we have lower oxygen temperatures naturally. So you're taking an already lowered oxygen level, depleting the oxygen more, and creating these areas of hypoxia or anoxia, meaning low or no oxygen. And so these fish essentially suffocate, and we're left with this. And stinky, decaying fish on our shores in our beautiful town that nobody really wants to come to see stinking, decaying fish on the shores. So, stormwater, where's my picture? There it is, all right. Stormwater runoff, full of lots of different pollutants, because like I said, this is anything and everything that is on a roof, a parking lot, a street, sidewalk, etc. Anything from sediment, again, dirt, to nutrients, heavy metals, things from my car exhaust, and also bacteria from animal waste or roadkill, etc. And then here's just to really drive home nasty stormwater going straight out into the river. I got this from our resident stormwater guru from one of his slides, because really like that dramatic impact of all of those pictures. But there is, like I said, here's the drains to river example of the little emblems by our drains. So sediment is the actual #1 pollutant in stormwater runoff. Again, it seems so strange, it's just dirt, but that sediment increases the turbidity in the water, which is suspended solids within the water column. So essentially it just makes it very cloudy. You can't see, you put your hand in the water and you can't see it after a couple of inches. That prevents prey from escaping predators, keeps predators from finding prey. It will choke out the sunlight so that it'll basically suffocate the aquatic vegetation. No longer can photosynthesize, which is food and habitat for aquatic critters. And to really just make it, be the Debbie Downer about it, it will actually literally clog the gills of fish and literally suffocate them. So don't sweep dirt into the storm drains, please. CAFOs, again, is our #1 source of agricultural pollution. So as I said, these CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, these are outdated, ineffective systems. We've got them for swine, and we've got them for poultry, which has become an increasing problem. Many of you who've been here for quite a while know that the swine industry, there was a moratorium placed on it in the 90s, so we have no new swine farms, which is good. But we have an explosion of poultry facilities, and that's even worse because at least with the swine facilities, you can go onto DEQ's website and you can look at a map, you can download a list, and you can look at every single swine facility in our state. You can get the permit number, the facility name, all the information about it, you know exactly where it is. Cannot do that for poultry. And it is not regulated the same way that swine is, so it's regulated by Department of Ag instead of Department of Environmental Quality, who oversees swine and cattle CAFOs. So it's a big mess. And they are just as vulnerable to things like hurricanes, like in the instance of this swine facility. This is days after Florence. And this right here, and all of this right here, is the Trent River. Because in the Neuse Basin, we still have, I believe it's 63 swine facilities within the 100-year floodplain of the Neuse River. Many of them did flood in Florence and Matthew, Floyd, and one thing that Sound Rivers is working on to kind of deal with this CAFO problem is the Voluntary Swine Buyout program. It was initially created after Floyd, and then it was refunded after Matthew, thanks to the very hard work of Matthew Starr, our upper Neuse Riverkeeper and Sound Rivers, to get that refunded and continue funding it. So what it is, it's a win-win for everyone, because the owners of these facilities, they don't want their properties being flooded and damaged every time we have a hurricane come through. And I mean, days before this picture was taken, all of this was underwater. All of it. And so that lagoon and that lagoon were completely inundated. So all of the millions of gallons of untreated swine waste was essentially scooped out of there and washed downstream to us. So on top of the advocacy for things like the voluntary buyout program, which is essentially, it allows the farmers to close out their contract, close up shop. The land is still there. They can do whatever they want with it. It's theirs. They just cannot industrially raise hogs on it anymore. They can have a small farm, totally fine, not these big things. And so, again, it's a win-win for everyone. But beyond the lobbying and advocacy, as I said, I'm a scientist. We actually go out and routinely monitor the creeks and the streams around these facilities to point out where the problem facilities are, because for the most part, these are people doing their job, putting food on the table, but every orchard has a few bad apples, and one of our jobs is to find those bad apples and make sure that they are held accountable for polluting our waterways. Sanitary sewer overflows, aka sewer spills, or sewer fountains in the case of this photo. This is a statewide issue because we have a statewide problem with essentially crumbling infrastructure. It's very hard to convince, governments and municipalities to spend money on things like sewer upgrades because it's not pretty. You can tell them like, we'd love to put in some more sidewalks. Look how pretty they are. Look at the park we just built. Yes, that's lovely, but what about the sewers that are leaking? It's hard to convince them. And so this is, like I said, a statewide issue. And so Riverkeepers across the state and we're all working together on advocating and working with DEQ and local governments for things like not only spending money on updating, upgrading, and maintaining the infrastructure, but also adequate notifications of these spills. For the past 5 years, Havelock has had over 30 spills at one manhole alone. Within 5 years, over 30 spills for a combined, I think we got up to, we're about 700,000 gallons of untreated waste in our river over 5 years, 4.5 years really. And it wasn't until I started spending a lot of time with DEQ, asking a lot of questions, and really just kind of getting on their nerves, that they actually started fining the city of Havelock because they had about 2.5 years without any penalties for all these sewer spills, so no one was getting punished, barely a slap on the wrist. And now the city of Havelock is under an SOC, or a special order by consent, which is essentially an agreement between the city and the state of here's your to-do list and here's your timeline. If you don't do this item by this date, you get fined. You have a spill, you get fined. It's great. They haven't had a spill since from that manhole. I think they had one spill from that manhole right after they But it's amazing when they actually start looking into trying to solve the problem, which to Havelock's credit, they had hired an engineering firm and they had been looking into it. They had been doing fixes, and every time they thought, we finally fixed it, they'd have another spill. I can't completely throw Havelock under the bus because they were trying, but what they weren't doing was letting the public know. The best they were doing was the bare minimum obligation of submitting a notice to the newspaper saying there was a spill. And unless you were actively looking through the news, or if you're like me and you have a Google alert set up so you get a notification whenever there's a sewer spill, no one in Havelock knew. about it. And, they only knew about it because they followed me on Facebook and saw me posting about it or me talking to the media about it. And they never let the citizens know. And that's something that, again, part of my job is making sure that the public is informed, and something that everyone across the entire state needs better information. We have tried talking, or we're working on trying to develop a text alert system that you can sign up for your area, and you'll get a text alert that tells you there is a sewer spill in this area, just to keep us all informed. Litter, like I said, it's an increasing problem, and something that especially the pandemic has helped kind of highlight just how bad it is. Because when we first went into quarantine and everyone was staying home and trying not to tear their hair out, they were going on walks because it was about the only thing we could do. And we kept getting more and more emails about, I was walking along Goose Creek and there's all this litter there, and we were walking here and just saw all this trash. And so we are working on doing a litter reporting page on our website so that you can report where you see litter, and you can also report where you've gone and cleaned up. Because river cleanups is something that we used to do regularly pre-COVID, and we still do them, but we do more of a cleanup coordination. So if you're interested in doing a cleanup, either as this group or just individual, if you've got your own church group or a book club or something you want to do that, give me a holler. I can hook you up with trash grabbers, plastic bags, the works, and we can clean up our rivers. But one of the things, yes, this is what can be done. So I was telling somebody, this was at Lawson Park a couple of years ago. One of the fun things about the regular river cleanups is the treasures you can find, including this baby doll head that had grasses growing out of the top of it, so it looked like Medusa. So I had Perseus here, model with his Medusa head. And then, yeah, of course, the kids' basketball goal. So, I mean, these are definitely things, very simple things, picking up litter, reducing use of single-use plastic, etc. All of these things, very simple, easy to do things that really do go a long way to making a big difference. I was going to talk about microplastics, but that slide got taken out somehow. We've partnered recently with other riverkeepers across the state to do a grant-funded project on studying microplastics, just to learn how prevalent they are in our water bodies, where they are, and just how big of a problem it is, because we still don't know, really we don't know what we don't know, so we're trying to figure it out. And one fun, exciting thing is we are getting our very own litter getter, or trash trout, or I forgot the other name for it. It's a contraption that goes across the creek and actually collects all of the floating trash and debris that will be cleaned out. So we're going to be putting that in the Lawson Creek before it goes under the overpass, before it's actually in the park. And so that'll be a volunteer opportunity that we'll need some help cleaning out regularly and keeping an eye on. All right, I promised no more doom and gloom. Our swim guide program. Has anyone heard of swim guide? There you have.
I love your alert.
Every year, we've done it 4 years now, from Memorial Day through Labor Day weekend. We sample over 40 sites throughout the Neuse and Tarpamlico River basins. I think we have 14 here in the lower Neuse from Kinston down to Oriental. And we sample for E. coli bacteria during the summer swimming recreation months. And we sample that each Friday, or each Thursday, to give you results on Friday, to let you know where it is or is not safe to swim, boat, fish, or recreate. And we've got our website. Here's our map of all of our sites. Green means we passed, low bacteria. Red means we failed, high bacteria. Also our, of course, weekly water reports from our interns who run the program. And we have a text alert system. So you can pull out your phone right now, text the word swim, all caps, to 33222. You'll get one text that lets you know that you're signed up, but then you won't hear anything again until Memorial Day next year. And every Friday afternoon, you can be making your weekend plans, like we're gonna go fishing at Lawson. No, we're not. Going somewhere else. So that's one of my favorite things that we've done, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of sound rivers and our work and what's going on with our rivers. So thank you so much. Sorry, I kind of did questions time.
You are perfectly fine. Before we do questions, because I'm going to ask, I have a feeling that it's going to be there's going to be a lot of people with some interesting questions. Thank you. But we want to make sure that we appropriately say thank you. It's a little gift from us, and it might be warm and snuggly for somebody coming soon. Now, we are short on time, so I am going to ask, while we are doing this,
I'll hang around for questions after.
No, we're going to do questions if you don't mind, and I'm going to ask you to pass the basket. I told you I was going to do this numerous times tonight, and I haven't, but here comes the basket. So open the wallets, open the checkbooks, and give generously to Sound Rivers. Coastal Women Forum members have never not been generous, and I know that you will do the same. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming. While we are doing that, I'm going to ask about questions before we move on to member minutes. So we might run a few minutes over. Go right ahead.
Do you have Venmo?
Do you have Venmo?
Personally, not professionally.
Okay. But there'll also be somebody at the luncheon meeting. Okay. And you can give via our website.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have a donate button on our website, soundrivers.org.
And we have a donate button on Coastal Women, and in the memo section you can put Sound Rivers, because we've already received some donations that way from our generous members. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I
Sharon.
did mention industrial waste from our big manufacturers. The base, when I worked in Havelock, and I live in Havelock, kind of on the border, and all the dumping of the fuel, and I've been here 17 years, my husband is an aerospace engineer at B-22, which is what brought us here. That wasn't mentioned, and that is a huge pollutant in this area.
And it's really, really hard to, the relationship there is difficult. The little bit of information that we can get is like a page and only 2 sentences aren't redacted kind of a thing. Also, I know that some of my predecessors definitely were able to kind of really hit at the base quite a bit. And I don't think they really got too much information out of them, but they were able to show some evidence that they were cleaning up their act a little bit. But that is, that's something that I get all the time, and it's hard to go up against the
Political.
the military complex.
Weyerhaeuser, Bosch, and some of our bigger manufacturers.
So Weyerhaeuser was a problem back in the 90s, early 2000s, and again, my predecessors really hit hard at them. I think there might have been a lawsuit or two previously, or at least the threat of. And I know that Weyerhaeuser hired a new environmental specialist, and he came in and cleaned up their act a lot. And so thankfully, they have not been on my radar with any issues or anything. So they're doing what they're supposed to do.